Okay.
Okay. First of all, I just want to talk to you. Just want to, today is November 28th. 28th, 2002. Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. Okay? Just give us your full name.
Irving L. Arnold.
What does the L stand for?
Lewis. Louis.
When you were born, were you given that name?
No. The name given on the birth certificate is Irwin with a W instead of a V.
What?
Irwin Arnold. Aronowitz at that time.
Who are your parents?
Louis Arnold and Sarah Arnold.
Louis, what was Louis's full name? Wasn't it Zalman?
That was his Hebrew name.
Zalman Leib.
Zalman Leib.
And your mother's name?
Was Surah.
And what was her maiden name?
Sarah Mendelssohn.
Mendelssohn. And who were your father? What were his parents' names?
My father's father?
Yeah.
Was my grandfather rather was
Hillel.
Hillel, and my mother's name was Surah.
Wait a minute. No, Hillel's wife was Sonia?
Yeah.
Sonia. Do you know what her maiden name was by any chance?
No.
Where were they from?
Poltava, Russia.
What did he do over there? Hillel. Did he have a business?
Hillel was a miller. A miller was a man who had a grinding stone on the back of a truck that was pulled, or not a back of a truck, but back of a trailer that was pulled by horses. He would go from one farmer to the next and grind their corn and wheat.
Uh-huh. That's what he did?
That's what he did.
Did Hillel have any brothers or sisters, do you know?
He had two brothers, one of whom I knew, and the other one I don't know what happened to.
What was his name, the one you knew? Was that Max? Who was Max Arnold?
Max Arnold was the son of Aaron Arnold.
And who was Aaron? Who was Aaron Arnold?
Aaron Arnold was the son of...
Well, wait a minute. Aaron was that Hillel's father? Was Max and the Hillel brothers?
No. Going back to around 1800.
Yeah.
It was my grandfather's name was Hillel Felthel.
Okay.
Herbert William.
Okay.
My dad's cousin, Sam Arnold, and Max Arnold were the son of Aaron Arnold.
So that must have been a brother to Hillel.
And the father of Aaron Arnold was Yitzhak Aronowitz.
Okay.
He's coming back to me now as I think of it.
All right, so they must have been, was that a brother to Hillel? Do you want to stop that?
No, I'm just moving it as long as it's looking this way.
Brother to Hillel was Yitzhak.
Yitzhak was Hillel's brother.
Yes. Max Arnold was the older member of this entire group.
Okay, so he was a cousin to your father?
Yeah.
Okay, did he have any brothers?
Sam?
No, Max.
Max? Yeah, he had a younger brother, Nathan Arnold, who lived out in California. And was a real nice guy, just a real gentleman, real polished, real nice. Very nice. And there was,
Who was
Yitzhak had Aaron had Max, Sam, and Ruli. Ruli was their sister. And Sam Arnold, who was married to my mother's sister. Sam Arnold and my my father, Louis Arnold,
We're first cousins.
were first cousins, and he married two sisters.
Okay.
He married Frida Arnold, who was Sam's wife, and she was married, my mother was married to my dad, Louis Arnold.
And your mother had other sisters and brothers?
Well, the baby of the family was Anne.
Anne? Yeah?
What are you making a face with?
No, nothing. All right.
Why are you doing all that?
Because she's making noise over there. All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Your mother.
Was a Mendelssohn.
She was a Mendelssohn. What other brothers and sisters? She had one brother?
She had one brother and
Morris.
two sisters.
And her sisters were Anna
The baby
and Minnie.
and my mother, who was six after that, and then Frida, then Minnie,
Yeah,
then Morris.
right. And her parents. What were her parents' names? What were their parents' names? Wasn't it Jenny? The Mendelssohn?
My mother, my grandmother was Jenny. They called her Shana.
Shana. Jenny. Okay.
Jenny. Her husband's name was Mendelssohn.
Yeah, what was his first name?
Can't think. My thinker isn't thinking.
And what did he do?
And he was some kind of a peddler, but I don't remember what he was.
He was a peddler?
Yeah, he had a horse.
When did he come to America, Mendelssohn? Grandpa Mendelssohn.
That we do not have any record of.
Why did he come to Cleveland?
Because, why he came to Cleveland,
Yeah, he came to Cleveland.
I really don't know. Well, I guess Sam Arnold, or Max Aronowitz, and Sam Aronowitz brought a couple of...
Well, they brought the Arnolds, the Aronowitzes here.
Yeah.
They brought him here?
Brought them to Cleveland.
They brought him to Cleveland. But
It
why
sounds
did
like an
Mendelssohn?
interrogation.
That's what it is. It's an interrogation. I just want to...
Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Sorry.
What did he say?
Nothing.
You want me to stop?
No.
No.
I don't want you guys to make fun of this.
This is not, no.
I don't remember it as well as I used to.
But what? Who brought the Mendelssohns to Cleveland?
That I can't tell you. That I cannot tell you.
Okay, you have a bunch of... Your mother had a bunch of aunts that lived in Cleveland.
Not a bunch of aunts. She had 6 aunts.
6 aunts, okay. Who were they? Like Aunt Copperman and I?
Well, you're naming them. Why should I?
No, you. I want you to name them.
Okay, there's Copperman. And there was Sog. Well, Sog is married to Copperman. That's...
Yeah, well, that's Minnie. Yeah. All right. Well, go ahead.
Where were we again?
The aunts. Yeah, there was Aunt Copperman. What about Aunt Meister?
There was Aunt Waxman, who had an adopted daughter. Aunt Waxman, who had an adopted daughter. I forget her. Max, I think her husband's name was Max. Then there was Aunt Nye, who had Bill Nye.
Yeah, and Katie.
Katie Nye, and Sam Nye. Then there was Mrs. Meister, who married the old man Meister. He had 5 children. She died, and he married Mrs. Meister, one of the sisters, very, very astute, very, very good businesswoman, and a very beautiful woman the way she walked.
So your mother had aunts living in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe some of them brought them over.
I doubt it, but maybe. My mother came over when she was 8 or 9 years old.
And she went to school here in...
Yeah, right to school. As did my dad. My dad came over and went right to night school.
Now, when your dad came over, why did he come to Cleveland?
because of Max Arnold.
He came here because of Max Arnold. Was there any other reason that he was supposed to come to Cleveland?
Well, why he picked Cleveland, I can't tell you, other than the fact that Max Arnold had a cap plant in Cleveland, and he opened one up in Indianapolis, and that's where Uncle Sam, my mother's brother-in-law, and my dad went to Indianapolis to take care of the cap plant there.
Okay, when your father came here, wasn't he supposed to get married when he came here? Wasn't it a shidduch?
Oh, yeah.
Your mother, Grandma Arnold, told me that there was a shidduch with that Fanny Rosen.
That's correct.
He was to marry Fanny Rosen.
That's right.
He came here to Cleveland, and he got on the boat.
Got off the plane, a train rather.
Well, yeah, but when he got off the boat, he decided to become more American-looking. He shaved his curls, and
that I never heard. That I
and
never
became
heard.
a little more American-looking. And
heard
he
that.
he took the train to come here to marry Fanny Rosen, or whatever her maiden name was.
Her name was Fanny Arnold. Fanny Aronowitz.
No, it wasn't Fanny Aronowitz, was it? No, it was something else.
Yeah, just a moment. She married Meyer Rosen.
Oh, well, maybe it was.
She married Meyer
That's
Rosen.
King's, and what was her name? Adeline King or something?
Yeah.
Was her mother?
No. No, Adeline was, that was from the other side of the aisle. My grandfather Mendelssohn had two sisters.
He had two sisters.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they both lived in Cleveland.
And they lived in
One
Cleveland.
was married to a Scot, and one was married to a Cohane. Cohane, I think.
Yeah, I remember him. Abe Cohane.
Abe Cohane. Yeah, you know, it's been so long since I've talked to anybody about these people. You don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
And as you get to be 89 years old, your memory starts to sink.
Well, no, you're doing fine. You're doing very, very well.
Yeah, I know.
You're doing very well with it. Well, you are. You are. So, your father came here, and he came to the train station to meet Fanny Rosen.
Yeah, my dad was 21 years old.
And Fanny Rosen brought who to the train station?
She didn't bring anybody. She didn't go to the train station. Max and Frida went to the train station.
All right. Well, then how did he meet Fanny's friend Sarah?
How did he meet who?
Fanny's friend Sarah. Sarah Mendelssohn.
How did he meet? I don't know how he met her.
I thought she came to the train station with Fanny, or
No,
she
they
came
were
there.
just related. They were just related, very distantly related.
And didn't they? And then when he met her, he started to go out with her. Is that right?
I don't know what they did, but they start going together.
When did they get married? Do you know?
They got married in 1907.
1907 they got married?
1906 or 1907. My brother Henry was born. He was the firstborn in our family. And he was born in 1909. And my sister Jeanette was born in 1911.
Yeah.
And then I was born in 1913.
Yeah.
Howard was born in 1918.
Okay.
Adeline was born in 1922.
1922 Adeline was born. When did you move to Indianapolis?
We moved to Indianapolis. Well, we lived in Indianapolis. We lived in Indianapolis for several years.
Yeah, but when did you move there? Were you?
I was in the second grade, I think.
You were in the second grade?
Yeah. So I was 6 years old.
6 or 7. So about 1920. And you moved to Indianapolis. To what? To go to work where? Where did
My
your father?
dad went to work at the cap plant today.
Went to work at the cap plant. And
Neither one of them can make a living.
who? What do you mean? Neither one. Who do you mean? Sam?
Sam and my dad.
Well, now Uncle Sam had running the cap factory. Oh, he was running the cap factory for. That was who was Max? His father or his cousin?
Max's father.
but who was Sam's father? What was his name?
Sam and Max were brothers.
Okay. So, in other words, his brother started the cat business, Max?
No. Max had a daughter. Her name was Della.
Yeah.
She started going with a fellow by the name of Jake Solomon. Jake Solomon was like the typical college professor. Pince-nez glasses, bald-headed, always wore a stiff collar. I remember him well. I used to go down there and help pack calves and get a couple of bucks. Della met, I don't know how she met Jake Solomon, but she met Jake Solomon. They fell in love and they got married. Jake Solomon worked for Con Tailoring Company in Cleveland, Ohio. They wanted to expand, so they went to Indianapolis and they bought a little company there, and they expanded it. They had 100 or 150 machines working in a row. You know what I mean by machines?
Yeah, sewing machines.
They needed somebody to be a foreman, so they hired my dad to come to Indianapolis, where they opened up this cap factory. My dad went to work there and eventually became somewhat of a partner. I don't know what the deal was at that time.
And what was Uncle Sam doing there?
He ran the whole thing.
Okay. So he was running the whole plant. Your father was a foreman on the...
Yeah, and then he became a part of it, a very small amount of stock.
Do you remember the move, Pa? Do you remember the move to Indianapolis?
The what?
Do you remember the move to Indianapolis when you were a small child? How did you get to Indianapolis when you were a small child?
By train.
By train? Do you remember the trip at all?
I remember the very first one, yeah. I remember the very first one. I remember coming out of that railroad station, and like the little curious boy that I was, I looked around with my hands in my pockets. I could see myself doing it. Maybe it's an imagination, but as I remember it, we were at Washington and Illinois Street. That's where the station was. I came out of the station and ran across the street. My mother almost beat the hell out of me because I ran across the street the way I did. Small incident, but you don't
Where
forget it.
Where did you live in Indianapolis? Where'd you live?
Well, they had a two-family house, Frida and Sam, and we lived upstairs, they lived downstairs. For 3 or 4 years, then they moved to their own home, and we moved to our own house.
And who are their kids? Frida and Sam.
Esther, Aaron, and Irving.
And they the same age you are? I mean, who's the same age you are? Irving?
Irving, he's 45 days older than me.
What about Esther? She was
the
old.
oldest.
She was the oldest?
Yeah.
And then Aaron?
Aaron was the oldest boy of the family. Esther, then Aaron, and then the rest of the family.
Okay. So you lived in Indianapolis. When you went to Indianapolis, did you start Sunday school there?
Yeah.
Now,
Now, when I say yes, it's a little unclear. I remember the building, but the teacher had a tremendous talus. You know, that he threw over the shoulders and dragged along the floor as you walked.
was it a regular shul or was it the German temple?
No, that was a regular shul.
It was a regular shul.
Yeah. It was just an old house that had been converted.
An old house that had been converted into a shul.
Yeah.
And you went to Sunday school there. Started to go to Sunday
No, I
school.
didn't go to Sunday school there. They tried to teach me some. What's the matter?
Nothing.
They tried to teach us even though we couldn't get it. We went to the German, my brothers and sister and I went to the German temple.
Why did you go to the German temple?
Because they taught everything in English.
Because they taught it in English, so you could understand it.
That's right.
Did your parents, in their house, did your mother keep kosher?
made an effort to. She wouldn't eat anything in the house that was not kosher, but if she was out at a restaurant, she would cheat a little bit. She'd say, I don't know what I'm eating. I'm not never want to know.
Did she keep 2 sets of dishes in the house?
Yes, at the beginning, yeah.
In the beginning. Did your father go to the shul on Friday night or Saturday morning?
No. My father did not exude any interest in religion.
So he sort of shied away from it.
Yeah. But he, on the high holy days, he would...
On the high holy days, he went to temple.
That's right.
When your brother was bar mitzvah, Brother Henry was bar mitzvah, where did they have the bar mitzvah?
At the Henry and Aaron, who were the same age, had a teacher come to the house and teach him their bar mitzvah.
And taught him the bar mitzvah. And then where did they have it, do you know?
As far as I can remember, they had it in the shul.
In the shul.
Yeah.
Went to the shul to have the bar, but they learned it that way.
Yeah. At the temple, at the German temple, we had confirmation.
You had confirmation at the German temple.
And that was all in English.
The German temple was a reformed temple then.
At that time, yes. I imagine still is.
Yeah, well that's why they call it the German temple, because the Germans were the big in reform. Was it a big temple?
No, it was a very small house.
That was also in a small house?
Yeah. By the time Howard got the bar mitzvah, they had built a large building.
They had built a building there.
And it was called the Bethel.
No, that was in Akron, was the Bethel, wasn't it? Or that was a Bethel in Indianapolis too?
Bethel in Indianapolis.
Okay. Did you know a lot of Jewish people in Indianapolis? Did you live
That's
in
all I associated with.
You lived in a Jewish neighborhood?
No, the house in Indianapolis was in a non-Jewish.
What was the Jewish center like? You belonged to the Jewish center?
Well, the Jewish Center was originally built as a private man's club. And they had a large meeting hall, and they had some classrooms. Then they built a tremendous gymnasium on the back end of the building, and they had athletic activities. And that's where I used to hang around there, and I worked at the gym. I was 10 or 11 years old, handing out towels for a nickel. And I heard guys playing instruments, and I was very interested in that.
Yeah.
And turned out to be my scoutmaster, Harold Brown. Now that I think of it, this is going back very, very far. This is about 1925, 26.
Okay, so 1926, you're about 13 years old?
Yeah.
12, 13 years old. Okay.
I was not bar mitzvah, and the other Irving was not bar mitzvah because we couldn't get anybody to come to the north side to teach us.
Okay.
And we couldn't afford to go down to the south side because it was so far away. Go ahead.
Okay, so how'd you start playing an instrument?
Well, my dad was a musician. He was a musician when he was in Russia. And he had, you see, my mother sang beautifully. She had a very lovely voice. And she was so enamored with the Jewish songs, and she would sit there for hours and tell Jeanette and I, my older sister, about what the records translated meant. And that's how we learned to understand Jewish. My mother always wanted us, she says, I don't care whatever you do, but don't lose the language.
The Yiddish language?
Yiddish.
She wants you to learn Yiddish.
Yeah. And that's how I learned to...
What was the first instrument that you played?
Well, my dad always had an instrument around the house. Pick it up.
Well, what was it?
Guitar.
A guitar?
Mandolin.
A mandolin?
And my sister Jeanette, of course, took piano lessons.
You had a piano in the house?
Had a piano in the house. My dad, for her, could do anything. And
did you play any other instruments?
Played the piano. We had a piano in the house. You have a piano in the house, you play it.
Uh-huh. What'd you do? Just pick out the notes?
Just
or?
pick it up. I just picked it up. I can't explain how it worked, but it worked. Every time I'd hear a song, I'd go crazy till I got home, sat down at the piano, and figured it out with one finger. After I figured it out with one finger, I figured out what I had to do with the left hand, play the chords.
Did anybody kind of show you what to do?
Well, Jeanette tried to teach me, but it didn't work.
She tried to teach you. Did Henry play an instrument?
Henry played mandolin.
He played the mandolin? And what about and your father? Did you play with your father? Did your father play music with you?
Well, when my dad played, everybody sat down and was quiet. He used to play beautifully. He played the guitar beautifully. But he couldn't teach me how to play it because it was a different tuning. I don't know why it turned out to be that way, but it was a different type of tuning. And I was the youngest one, but we had a 5 or 6 piece or little orchestra, and we would go to bars. I was very young. Go to a bar, throw a hat down on the floor, throw a couple quarters in there, and we start playing. People were sitting at the bar, would come over to throw a nickel or a dime or a penny, and we'd split it up at the end of the evening, get a couple of bucks some way.
Now, how old were you when the Depression came along?
Well, the Depression came along in October of 1929, so I was 16 years old.
And what happened to your family at that point?
Well, everything went down the drain. So I got a job at the fair store in Indianapolis. After I graduated from high school, I was 16 years old, June of 1930. And that was it, until I met Mother.
When you were growing up in Indianapolis and you would run into people who weren't Jewish, did anybody say anything to you about being Jewish?
Oh, yes, all the time.
Well, what would happen?
Used to call the other Irving and I the Fighting Irish,
Yeah.
being sarcastic about it.
When you went to school, were there other Jewish people in school?
No, I used to carry a newspaper when I was about 10 or 11 years old. And they used to dispense with the newspaper in an alley. They had a garage, and the paper would deliver the papers to this garage in the alley. And I had 15 or 20 customers, or maybe more. And I would pick up whatever papers I needed, deliver them on Saturday, collect, and pay for them.
So then what happened? When you were delivering the papers, I mean, something happened because you were Jewish and delivering newspapers?
Well, I got the help knocked out of me a couple of times.
And what about when your father was walking down the street and he had friends that belonged to the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, they burned a fiery cross on a lawn down the street from us, which frightened my folks very much because fires were very prevalent at that time. But we were fortunate; we didn't have any problems, and we had to blend in with the other kids at school. Not they blended to us, but we to them, because we were so outnumbered.
So you made friends with some Gentiles?
Yeah. My very first real date, was a non-Jewish girl.
What did your parents say when you...
Well, I was a kid. They didn't care.
And what happened later? Anything ever happened later? Did they allow you to go out with them and everything?
What?
Would they allow you to go out with a non-Jewish girl?
Yeah, they didn't interfere.
And
What's the word? Agnostic, my dad?
agnostic? Yeah, what's an agnostic?
Not sure if there's a God or not.
Well, I think my dad leaned to that way. In other words, he wasn't that particularly concerned about what...
Did he daven?
could daven, but he didn't always do it.
He didn't daven. And what about your mother? Was she? I mean, would she sit with him in temple?
No, they separated in the temple. He sat on the first floor. All the women sat on the second floor.
Uh-huh.
You've been to a temple like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's.
My mother was like mother, like my wife. Just a real good-hearted kid. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? You're getting a little tired right now.
Where's Amy?
She's in the other room. You're getting a little tired right now. We're going to shut this off now, and we're going to pick it up a little later. We'll do it
Can you
later.
play back some of it?
Yeah.